okay, back to what we are our originally scheduled programming here, which was a conversation about the Cardinals having a Marvin Harrison Jr. problem. And I don't mean that as a shot at the kid. I mean that as, why isn't he putting up the numbers that we expected a top 5 overall draft pick to put up? Why has it been such a struggle to get him involved? And I ran some numbers this morning, and I was surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised at what the numbers told me. During the 4-game winning streak that the Cardinals had, right? They had the 4-game winning streak and then their most recent 2-game losing streak. Well, during the 2-game losing streak, so it's only a 2-game sample size, but this is what the average output over those 2 games were for Marvin Harrison Jr. 4 catches per game, 53.5 yards, and 1 total touchdown over those 2 games. So he averaged 4 catches a game, averaged about 54 yards, and had 1 touchdown over those 2 games. So that's during the 2-game losing streak. And you might point at those numbers and say, this is a top 5 overall pick. This is a franchise cornerstone wide receiver that we expect to be here for a long time. We expect to be an all-pro. Those numbers have to be better than that. What did it look like during the 4-game winning streak that they went on? Here is what Marvin Harrison Jr.'s output was, averaged out over that 4-game winning streak. He averaged 4 catches per game. He averaged 55 yards per game and had 2 total touchdowns. Those numbers during the 4-game winning streak don't look all that much different from his numbers during the 2-game losing streak. So the Cardinals had that winning streak, won 4 games, put themselves into first place, 6-4, coming out of the bye, all the stuff that we talked about. And they did that with Marvin Harrison Jr. being the same receiver that he's been for the last 2 weeks when they lost to Seattle up in Seattle and when they blew a 19-6 lead against Minnesota, and he caught the touchdown in that game. For the season, Marvin Harrison Jr. has 41 catches for 607 yards and 7 touchdowns. His pace for this season, his 17-game pace, is 58 catches, 859 yards, and 10 touchdowns. That is what the projected output is for Marvin Harrison Jr. in his rookie season. And the only way that I know how to do this and have this conversation is, okay, you were the top wide receiver taken in your draft. What have the other top wide receivers in recent drafts done in their rookie season? Because that's the way to gauge it. Yeah, the teams are going to be different, but are we putting too high of expectations on Marvin Harrison Jr. when if his output ends up being around 60 catches, around 900 yards, and 10 touchdowns, should we really be that upset? Well, the top wide receiver last year in 2023 was Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was the 20th overall pick. So 20th overall, 4th overall, there's a bit of a difference. But he had 63 catches, 628 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. already has more touchdowns than that, is almost got more yards than that, and is behind on catches, but his pace says that he's going to pass in yards and has already passed on touchdowns. So, okay. So, no, Marvin Harrison Jr. exceeding expectations from the first wide receiver that was taken in the 2023 draft. What if we go back a year before that? What if we go to 2022? Drake London, the 8th overall pick. All right. Now we're getting a little closer. Now we're in the top 10. Marvin Harrison Jr. a top 5 pick. Drake London a top 10 pick. Now we're getting closer to a fair evaluation. 72 catches for Drake London, 866 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So based on his pace, he's going to have less catches, fewer catches, and he's going to have fewer yards. Close, but fewer yards if he hits the pace that he's on for this season. Now, he does have more touchdowns already with 7. There was another top 10 receiver that year, Garrett Wilson for the New York Jets, who, by the way, had some of the worst quarterback play that season in New York. 83 catches, 1,103 yards, 4 touchdowns. Another top 10 pick that year, over 1,100 yards and 83 catches. Marvin Harrison Jr. would need to almost double his current output through the first 12 games of the season to reach that number. Let's go back a year before that. Jamar Chase was selected, 5th overall. Now we're basically right in the same stratosphere. Jamar Chase that season, 81 catches, 1,455 yards, 13 touchdowns. There were 2 other receivers taken in the top 10 that year, Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. Waddle, 104 catches, 1,015 yards. Devonta Smith, 64 catches, 916 yards, 5 touchdowns. I've got 3 receivers that were drafted in the top 10 recently that had 1,000-yard rookie seasons. Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle. Absurd rookie seasons. The Arizona Cardinals need to figure out a way to get Marvin Harrison Jr. more involved. This shouldn't be this difficult. Recent draft history tells us he should be better than what he has done so far. Because his 606 yards right now he's got more games to play. He's got 5 more games on the calendar. But it would be lower than everybody else right now. He will more than likely pass Jackson Smith and Jigba in the next game. But he's not catching Garrett Wilson. He's not catching Jamar Chase. He's not catching Jalen Waddle. It doesn't look like he's going to catch Devonta Smith. He might catch Drake London. All of those receivers. And think of the teams they're on. Atlanta, all we heard. They don't know how to use Kyle Pitts. They don't know how to use Drake London. They had to fire coaches and change quarterbacks. Not a team that is known for being an offensive juggernaut and utilizing their players correctly. Garrett Wilson, the New York Jets, Zach Wilson throwing him the ball, 1,100 yards. Jamar Chase, okay, he has Joe Burrow. It's nice to have Joe Burrow. Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, okay, your quarterback plays pretty good. But it's not like all of these teams are offensive juggernauts. They have to figure out a way to do more with Marvin Harrison Jr. This is a disappointing rookie season. His numbers need to be better than this because coming out in the draft, he was more talented than a lot of these guys on this list. In a redraft, or if he was thrown into the 2023 draft class, he would be taken in front of Jackson Smith and Jigba. He would have been taken in front of Drake London. He would have been taken in front of Garrett Wilson. And I don't think he's going to have a rookie season that is better than those rookie seasons. Kyler has to be better. He has to be better. Drew Petzing has to be better. There needs to be a further emphasis on getting him more involved. It should not be week 14, and we should be having this conversation. You drafted a bona fide number 1 wide receiver in the top 5. It should not be a conversation in week 14 of the regular season. How do we get him more involved? How do we get him into the flow of this offense? This should be a week 3, week 4 conversation. Should not be a conversation in week 14 with the playoffs on the line. They've got to figure it out, and they have to do so in a hurry.